Thank you for joining us for the Great Plains Athletic Conference training tape number 2. We had 6 games officiated by the Great Plains Athletic Conference last week. We had 2 challenges and replays, which will be part of our training tape today. And great news, we had 0 targeting calls on the field or challenge last week. So compliments to the players and coaches of helping us eliminate the call of targeting out of the game of football for the safety. With us today for our training tape, just like years past, we have Monty Tilgner from the Big Ten Conference. Monty, if you want to introduce yourself, thank you for helping out once again. And besides doing the training tape, what else do you do when it comes to education of football officials?
Thanks, Sean. I done the training tapes for the GPAC for probably since 2012, I believe. And I also was hired last year and again this year to train the officials for the state of Iowa. So I put out a weekly training tape for the state of Iowa. That can be found on the Iowa High School Athletic Association YouTube page. I also do some individual training of crews and individuals for high school and college.
Excellent. I love the collaboration here. We do very similar things in Nebraska with high school officials, and hopefully doing this training tape not only continues to grow our Great Plains Athletic Conference officiating staff, but it opens up doors for other NAI football officials and aspiring college officials. With no further ado, on play number 1, we have a editorial change this year when it comes to delay of game on the defense and then the offense false start prior to the snap. And we're going to take a look at this play, and then we'll have a discussion of why it is a delay of game on the defense and get into detail why NCAA and the CFO has made this editorial change this year. All right, so we have the defensive abrupt, exaggerated movement causing the offense to react, simulating the snap. All right, so this is correctly called defense delay of game. So Monty, from the meetings that you had, what has been the point of emphasis and why has this editorial change been added to our rulebook?
It became more and more of a problem last year, especially in the first 3 weeks. And about week 4, Steve Shaw came out with a slight change that we were going to make. Actually, we did this in the COC, I'm sorry, about this abrupt motion and what they could and could not do. And it continued to be a problem throughout the year. So then they addressed it, from the NCAA level this year. And it's this abrupt, exaggerated movement that they're looking at. So if you go to the end zone view, it actually shows a little better because probably 2 of these guys, the guys on the far left, I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. Can you see my cursor when I'm moving it or not?
We cannot, but I know the 2 guys on the left you're talking about, so I'm going to put up a circle.
Stand up D end, and actually, that guy there as well. If you watch his movement, his is totally different than the guy who's head up on 77. So if you just watch the movement of the first guy, he kind of puts his hand down, shuffles over. But then if you look at the movement by number 45 on the far right side of our screen, who's head up on number 77. Watch his movement, and that's what they're looking at changing, is how he just hops over, very abrupt, not a natural act. And when they do that, they want it to put it on the defense. And the announcement is just delay game on the defense. That's it. So.
And I will say, notice which offensive lineman moved 77 adjacent to the defensive lineman that was actually illegal. So correctly called, good call, defense delay game. And then with that being said, both the offense and defense, they're held to the same standard when it comes to trying to get the opponent to foul. So here on this one, we will have defensive movement, but then the snapper tries to get a free foul, not a free play, but a free foul by reaching out and slapping the defense. All right, so yes, does the defense move, but it's a normal defensive movement on a hard snap count. The movement is not intended to get the offense to foul. It is to get the defense to enter the neutral zone. And then the snapper just slaps the defense, all right, which is a false start this year. So you want to talk about the offensive side on this one. Yes, the defense does move, but why does the defense movement on this one put the false start on the snapper by him reaching out and slapping?
Yeah, so this hard count is one that, those defensive players, they might come into that neutral zone, and if the offense, sometimes they'll stand up. In this case, he reaches out and touches him. I don't know if it's the center or the guard, but it doesn't matter. When he reaches out and touches him, then we know that we're going to have something. And this has been clarified by Steve Shaw that in this case, this would be a false start. If that offensive player, if they get in the neutral zone on that hard count and that offensive player would come out of his stance and stand up, then we would have defense offside. But in this case, he's not in the neutral zone anymore, and the offensive player reaches out to make contact, and that's what makes it a false start instead of DOF.
Yeah, I always get questions from coaches. What should we teach our players to do? I would say go back a couple years. Once the defense enters the neutral zone, snap the ball. They're in the neutral zone at the snap. You have a free play because there's going to be a 5-yard penalty against the defense.
Yeah, that's the one that most teams do. They teach that center, hey, if you know that you got a guy in the neutral zone, snap that ball, and then usually they've got a go route by a receiver. In this case, they're in the red zone, so it's going to change a little bit. But the risk, I guess, that the offense has is if that guy moves forward but he's not in the zone, or if that snapper would snap that ball late when he's retreated back out of the zone, now they're scrambling a little bit maybe for a play.
All right, clip number 3, new mechanic this year, and Monty, you're the deep 3 pro, so I'm not going to do so much talking on this one. But the new mechanic, when the receiver is free of foul at the snap, the officiating crew is going to get into zones. All right, so I'll let you take it from here, talking about bunch and the proper pre-snap keys, and then how to transition into the zones.
You can see they come together, and if they come together close enough and we can make it a bunch, we want to do so. This is probably the farthest they could get where we could still consider them a bunch. So if I'm working this game, I'm going to get on the O2O and I'm going to say, hey, we got a bunch here. And what the advantage that gives us is now we can wait for these guys to declare their routes to know who the H is going to pick up, who the S is going to pick up, and who the B is going to pick up. So if we let this go forward just a little bit, and then I'll tell you when to stop, Sean. Right now. Yeah, so if you stop right here, what we want is we want to have eyes on all 3 of these receivers. So the comment here is about the H having a receiver in the belt. There's not a receiver in the belt in this case, so we would want our H to pick up the guy that's running the out route at him. Yep, right there. And then common sense would say, our deep wing would take the guy running up the middle, because the back judge is more in the middle of the field, to take the guy, number 2, who's running deep but a deep crosser. Yeah, that's who the back judge would pick up. So at this point now, we can have eyes on all 3 sets of receivers. And then as this play continues, once the ball's in the air, we know we should have everybody going to the ball, and hopefully we see that we have early contact, which we do. And this he turns at the last second. They do that all the time. They try to turn their head at the last second, trying to act like they're playing the ball. He's not. He definitely goes through this receiver So this is early contact, not playing the ball. The deep wing 100% should be all over this. I really like that our head line judge is on this as well, because we want our line of scrimmage officials to be more actively involved in the passing game, and this is one that he gets to early enough that he definitely can be on this. So now we got 2 flags that are separated. We want to get those 2 flags, together. Even if we're past 15, we just want to get them together so everybody knows we've got the same foul. And then we can't give a preliminary with 2 flags, so we got to get those guys got to get together and make sure they have the same foul. And then one of them could report, to the referee. They've got pass interference defense number 10, let's say, and if it's a full 15 yards or if it's a spot foul.
All right, so I'm going to bring up a coach's question. It's not on this play, but it has been asked to me before. Sean, what are you looking for when it's playing the ball? So, Monty, what are you looking for as a deep? Does this defender have to turn and look when the ball's on its downward flight? At what point is it playing the ball versus playing the receiver, the opponent?
Yeah, if you watch this one right now, he's definitely looking at that receiver. He still is. And basically he turns his head and, he still hasn't. Right now he's turning his head and that contact's being made. I kind of like what you said is, he's got to have his head turned while that ball's coming on his downward flight. Probably, we don't have a number, but it probably needs to be still 5 yards away from that receiver for him to actually be playing the ball. Playing the ball means he's turning and he's making a play where he's going to try to intercept that ball. In this case, that's obviously not the case.
Yep. So the coaches in our conference, pass it on to your defensive back coaches. The late turn of the head is not playing the ball. The sooner, the more leeway you're going to get when it comes to early contact.
Exactly.
All right, goal line mechanics and pylon rules. All right, so we are snapping at the 10. Mechanically, the field judge and side judge, you have everything inside the 2-yard line. Head linesman, line judge, you're going to have everything up to the 2-yard line. A lot of stuff going on in this play. The first one is the pass, and it is caught behind the line of scrimmage. So I know in the past we have said H&L, go ahead and point behind the line of scrimmage. But Monty, you said earlier, as a deep wing, you're not looking at the point. You're most likely looking at the block. What would you like as a deep wing to know if a catch is caught beyond the line of scrimmage or behind the line of scrimmage?
Yeah, so that's something that, as a crew, you need to decide. Personally, myself, I don't want to have to look at my, line judge or head line judge to see if he's pointing behind or downfield after I see blocking. Now, in this play, we don't have anything because we don't have blocking before this ball is touched. But if that player was engaged and blocking downfield, then we would have what we call OPI hanging. Yep, if that player was engaged in blocking, we would have OPI hanging. And OPI is a hanging foul because we can't throw our flag just because he's blocking downfield, because we know if that ball is first touched, and not where it's caught, first touched behind the line or in the neutral zone, we do not have a foul for OPI. We also would not have a foul for an ineligible player downfield. But if we have blocking downfield, and that's more than a yard downfield, that blocking, by the way, if we have blocking more than a yard downfield, and then that ball is first touched beyond the line of scrimmage, then that OPI hanging turns into a foul. So what we have done in the COC is our short wing will actually get on the 020 right at this point. And what we do is we only say if it's beyond. So in this case, it's definitely behind, so he would not say anything. But if this ball was first touched beyond the line of scrimmage, right now he would get on the 020 and he would say beyond. And what that does is if I, as a deep wing, had blocking downfield, and I hear him say beyond, I know I can throw the OPI because I've got the blocking, he's got it beyond. Now, what I really want to do is as a deep wing, I want to be good enough that I know I've got blocking, and my second step of the process is that I know where that ball's first touched. But it does help if it's really tight, if I, hear my wing or my short wing say beyond. So some crews will have a point, some crews will say behind, some crews will say beyond. But you have to decide as a crew what you're going to do. The reason beyond makes a little more sense is that it's meant to be behind, so that way they're not saying behind all the time. And if it's beyond, then they say it, and that kind of grabs our attention as a deep guy. Now, obviously, this is something that short wing might see the blocking as well, and then he can have that baby all himself because he sees the blocking downfield, and then he obviously knows where that ball's touched, and he can put a flag down himself. But to start out this play, we do not have a foul for OPI. We don't even have it hanging because when the ball's touched, we haven't had blocking yet. But this continues to have a lot of good stuff on this play.
Yes, it does.
So this is, this is what I've got to own this as a deep wing. I'm the man who has the call inside the two, but when it's this tight, I need to look at my short wing. And what I'm going to look at is I'm going to peek at him. I've got my judgment, and my judgment is when I see a body part down, I've got that ball either above the pylon, breaking the plane, touching the pylon, and I've got this as a touchdown, okay? But I need to look back because if that guy stepped out when he dove, when he did his dive, if he stepped out at the 4, then my short wing should be coming down, killing the clock with his whistle, and then he'd have him out of bounds at the 4. Now, in this case, if you can, we'll talk about this a little more when we go get our view. But if I peek back and he comes down, we're going to have a conversation. I don't want to go up right away. So we want to make sure that we look back. He's coming down, and if he says, I've got a knee out of bounds at the 2 or at the 1 or at the 1.5, and he's got that Superman dive going on, I'm going to say to him, in that case, I got a touchdown because he had that ball well extended in front of his body. When that knee was down at the 2, then I've got that ball breaking the plane. At that point, we got a touchdown, and then we go up late after that conversation.
Yeah, and do you think we have a better look at the end zone here?
Yeah, I do. So if you pause it right when the knee, right about there, is where, yep. At this point, the knee is down, but that knee is inside the 2. Even if it's at the 2, if he's fully extended in a Superman dive like this with the ball out in front, that ball's going to be 2 yards in front. Really, it has to be the side judge's call in this case, with that dive that he has. So we do want to get information. If the line judge or head line judge had him stepping out of bounds at the 4, the 3 before the dive, and he's more upright, then we can put him out short of the line, or short of the goal line.
Now, I will say this. We just got done with our referee conference call, and we were talking about the importance of syncing the sideline view with the end zone view. Because if we could get this spot when that ball crosses the goal line, and then at the same time from the end zone view, so when we switch views, that they're synced together, so when we go back and forth, we could piece it together. So administrators who take time to watch this video, if you are not synced, but you're streaming from the sideline, streaming from the end zone, it's going to be much more difficult for the officiating crew who is underneath the tent, the referee and the scribe, to piece the puzzles together. So if you are syncing it separately, if you could call your Sky Coach representative so we could sync it, so we could go back and forth frame by frame from end zone and sideline, it will help improve the accuracy of confirmed, stands, and overturned. Because if we can't sync it up perfectly, it's more than likely going to stay stands.
Sean, do they have where they can see both of them at the same time, or do they have to toggle back and forth between the two?
Yeah, they have to toggle back and forth at the same two, but as so long as the two cameras are synced on the same live stream, you could click back and forth and see say at the same time what each camera has processed.
Yeah, that's the only way you can piece it together.
Yep.
Yeah, if they can have those synced, that definitely would help.
All right, we have a blindside block on this play, and we do have an illegal blindside block on this play. And this is a great play to show the officials and coaches the difference between the two.
Yeah, just remember, not all blindside blocks are illegal. We have ones that are legal as well.
And I know before we go on to the end zone angle where you're going to see both blindside blocks, schools, if the time is embedded, we still cannot initiate a challenge due to a timing error. But if it is embedded, we can use it as a part of an aspect of all reviewable aspect of the play. So when setting up the cameras, this is awesome. They're trying to embed the scoreboard in there, so we always have the time. Let's just make sure we have the time on the scoreboard that is embedded. So here is the illegal blindside block and legal blindside block. So the first one, we have a brick in the hand. As Monty was saying, the umpire's right near it. If he were farther closer to the line of scrimmage to begin, it's funny. The closer you are to a play, the less you see it.
Yep. He's actually looking downfield and it's behind him, and he sees it after the fact. But great pickup by the referee.
All right, again, outside the vision, forcible, taking him to the ground. All right, now let's take.
Don't be fooled by that push at the end, because he leads with the shoulder, makes contact with the shoulder, forcible contact with his shoulder, and then he pushes after the fact. That's not an open hand push. If he wants that open hand push, he needs those hands out in front of him, out away from his body, and then he could push him to the ground, really with probably the same amount of force, and it would not be a foul in that case. But he leads with the shoulder and or the head, and then he ends up pushing him, and that is still a foul in that case.
And then here comes the second one. All right, so we just have a simple blindside block, shoulder to shoulder, but not forcible, not punishing. It doesn't even take the opponent to the ground.
And it's great that the back judge was looking there. That's right where he should be looking. You know, it's just that judgment that and he might have just got a little quick and kind of thought, you know, he's coming from the blind side, it's a foul, but it just wasn't forceful enough to make it a foul.
Yep. So, like Monty said, not every blindside block is illegal. It's the forcible punishing ones outside the vision that are.
Well, Sean, can you go back to that one in
Yep.
the sideline view? Let's just talk really quick. Go to that, sideline view. About if we have both these fouls, what we have, you know, what our penalty enforcement is. So stop at the first one, which occurs right when it occurs
It's during the nope.
right now.
Yep.
Yeah, we need to know when we throw our flag. We need to know, does that foul occur during the kick or during the return? And I'd say probably this is during the kick, so we know that if we our calling official announces to the crew during the kick illegal blindside block number 10, let's say, we know we have a PSK foul, and that's going to be enforced from the end of the kick, which is the 14-yard line, 14 yard line. The second one is definitely during the return, which then is a running play. So that occurs at the 14, and that then would be during the run. The run was ended up beyond. So if we had both those fouls, they would want to enforce that from that end of that kick, which would be the one that would, you know, in essence, kind of hurt them most. But that would be two different enforcements. So they would have their choice of which one they want to take. And as officials, we want to let them know, which one they're going to want.
Good point there. Slow down. Make sure you get referee all the information, and you need to know the ball status when you throw that flag. Interesting play you don't get to see every year, let alone every week, but forced touching on a scrimmage kick here. We're going to fast forward a little bit. So the ball is bounding right now. And we have number 30 from the black team force the opponent into the football, into touching. And we know when a player is blocked into the ball and touches the ball, it is not touching. We're going to ignore that touching. But what I really want to talk about here, Monty, this is clearly one player, number 30, blocking the opponent. What is the threshold of if both players are engaged in a block and the offense touches the ball?
Yeah, so go to my next comment there. I think that's mine or yours, the last one. So Steve Shaw made a comment about this last year, and on the play that they had last year, they had 3 players who grabbed and pulled the return team player and tried to get him to touch the ball. So again, remember, forced touching is no touching. That's our phrase. Forced touching is no touching. So, but in that case, they grabbed, what was it? It was they grabbed, they pulled, and they forced him into the ball. And in that case, with that grab and pull, he said he would support holding. Now in this case, they push him. So we probably don't, and we don't want to make this a foul if we don't have to. We just need to make sure we don't, give the kicking team the ball if, that return team player touches it. But you could possibly have a holding foul, and if you did, it'd be our basic penalty enforcement, on foul by the kicking team, which would be a 10-yard previous spot foul, or they can tack that 10 yards onto the end of the dead ball spot. So,
yep. And like you said, this is a push. A push is a legal block, but if it gets beyond what is legal, holding or a throwdown or slam down, you could go personal foul if it keeps on escalating up. All right, so this was the first replay we had last week, and this was a no catch interception in the back of the end zone. So here's the play full speed. We got possession. We have the defender surviving the ground and controlling the ball. And the ruling on the field, I will say, was an incomplete pass out of bounds. So that's one angle. We're going to show you the end zone angle. And then, Monty, what we'll do is we'll talk about what the referee and scribe should be doing while underneath the tent looking at this play.
Yeah, so when this ball's in the air, back to if you can get over a little bit, maybe to the upright, that would be great. But the most important thing is you are dead stationary when this ball's coming down and about to be caught. So if you don't feel you can get over it all, then don't. But good job of getting back to the end line first by the back judge. That's excellent. And then, he kills the clock there. Remember, we've got an incomplete pass, so really that should be our signal. But
and Monty, I misspoke there. The ruling on the field was an interception.
Okay. So that perfect. That's
Yep.
killing the clock.
Yes.
With the interception, so kill the clock and give that point, so everybody knows that we've got an interception.
Yep. So the ruling on the field was an interception, and the offense is the one who challenged it. They wanted an incomplete pass out of bounds.
Perfect position by the back judge. Really good, really handled well by him. Yep, there's the signal. Good. He gave kill the clock, then the touchback signal. Perfect. That's what we want.
And referees, when you go in there, you're going to get to this point. All right, possession. You could zoom in. I will tell you, you zoom in. This Hastings player gets in the way. You're not going to see the feet. It's clear that he survives the ground and keeps. Nope. Actually, he turns away from that camera with the control of the ball. So as we get to the end zone view, you just want to get to that point, and if it's synced, we should be near that point. Now you see the possession. Again, you zoom in. This is a most likely, probably, I think so. And when we say those words, that's when we're going to come out and stands as called on the field.
Yeah, and a really important thing to understand, referees, is that when you get this angle, they talk about this with our replay guys all the time. That pushes everything that direction. So unless this guy's like, you can see the red between his foot and the white out of bounds, you cannot tell at all where you would need to see space in between before you could, because otherwise with the camera angle there pushing everything, towards the end line, you don't know, where that toe of the foot is. Even if the heel of the foot would be definitely in the red, you don't know where the toe is. So, this is gonna stand. I mean, there's just no way you can, whatever the call on the field is, it's gonna stand.
I mean, it's amazing just that little dot, how close it looks to the front of the goal line and the back of the end line. And that's what he's talking about with it just pushes everything back. Replay number 2, we only have one angle on this one. And I believe the ruling on the field was an incomplete pass on this play.
It's positioning by our deep wing. We're snapping at the 15, so we want to be on that back restraining line. Now, the thing is on this one, that's on your sideline. Back judge is coming down the line, that's great. But field judge, side judge, I think this is the field judge in this case, this is all you. You've got to own this. And Sean, if you can just go slow now, he just doesn't make a decision. And the back judge comes all the way over, and we still don't have a decision made. And really, the only thing the back judge can help you with is if he survives the ground. And that opens up to you. You should have this thing. You got to own this yourself. You got to see it. You got to make a decision. And you got to either signal that you got a touchdown or you got an incomplete pass. And if you got an incomplete pass, to help out in replay, signal that, the waving signal that he's out of bounds, meaning his foot was out of bounds. Or if you had him in bounds but juggling it, and he didn't possess it till he was out of bounds, then give a juggle signal. But we need to have a decision, made by our deep wing on this one.
So I'm going to back up here. Would there be an opportunity with the flight of this ball, knowing that the goal line is not a threat? Can this deep wing sort of button hook and straddle this line as this catch is being made?
They actually don't. Yeah, we can button hook a little bit, but they don't want us straddling the line because they want the short wing to have a possible opinion as well. He'll straddle that line. He's back a ways, so he might not have a great look, but he could be straddling that line. They actually want the deep wing, if you pivot, to still not be straddling the line, still a short wing could have a look down that line as another set of eyes. But he definitely could pivot to have a better look. But he's in excellent position.
And the last thing on this one, the referee did go to the replay, the tent, and they only have this one angle. If you only have one angle, that means the system is working and you just use what you have. So just because the other angle's not working, it's not going to take the challenge review away. We have an angle, it is working, and the timeout will be charged, and this is also stands as called on the field. All right, this is going to be our last play of the video. We talked about sideline management as a point of emphasis in the preseason. We continue to talk about sideline management throughout the year. So what we're going to see here is we actually have two coaches. By the way, this is in between plays. This is not after a timeout. We have two coaches, one at the numbers, one inside the numbers, communicating plays to the players. So officials, if you go into the front of the rule book, you're like, hey, where do you find this? It's in the front of the rule book, points of emphasis, sideline control. Coaches are only permitted to go up to the sideline. I have talked to a couple other supervisors and assigners. We will allow, if they have one step on, the quarterback goes all the way to the sideline, the coach comes one step on, we're going to give them that one step. But we cannot let coaches come out to the numbers, inside the numbers, address it professionally, let the coaches know the expectations, and if they don't adhere to those expectations, we have that sideline warning flag to send the message of, Coach, we need you on the sideline.
Yeah, I mean, if they come out a step and they're signaling the play or whatever, that's fine. He obviously has to be back and out of the white in the coach's box before that ball's live, but yeah, they can't come out more than a step no matter what.
And I will say that's what this coach now calls a timeout, but this was prior to that timeout. And with that being said, just a small reminder. So this offensive team calls a timeout. We know from last year, once a team calls a timeout, they cannot call a consecutive timeout as well. Well, Monty, I appreciate you joining us for training tape number 2 in the Great Plains Athletic Conference. I plan on putting together, again, 8 to 10 plays next week to send out to our staff. So any final words of encouragement to the staff this week?
No, just keep working hard. Have great pre-games. Obviously talk about these plays, but talk about others and make sure you are continuing to get better. Talk to you again next week.
I will say the better the mechanics we have, the better the judgment we have. So keep up the great work. Thanks, Monty, again. See you next week.